welcome to welcome to Sagas and Sass Season 3, brought to you by Geek Saga Entertainment. I'm Tara, along with fellow hosts Jonathan and Nami.
This episode will cover parts 1 and 2 of The Silvered Serpents, the second installment in Roshani Chokshi's Gilded Wolves trilogy.
If you're watching live, join us in the chat or after the fact, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Sagas and Sass to continue the conversation. Also, please note that the views expressed in this show are those of the hosts as individuals and do not necessarily represent the show as a whole.
Oops, sorry, that's me. Give me 1 second. I've got to adjust your mic volume, Nami. You're very quiet.
Oh, that's weird. We're not.
I know. Normally, you're so loud. Okay, sorry about that. And don't forget that we now have a Patreon with 10 tiers ranging from $1 a month to $40 a month. It offers tons of ways to support us and receive some great perks in return. Check it out at patreon.com/geeksaga_entertainment.
All right, so much and yet so little happened in these parts of the Silvered Serpents. Our cookies have been apart for a while, but they gathered together again to go off to Russia once Severin apparently had a lead on the Fallen House's secret lair, which he believed they would find the book they've all been searching for at that lair. That book being the Divine Lyrics. We got to know the matriarch of House Corey, Delphine, a bit better, and they meet two new characters, Ruslan, the patriarch of House Dazbog, and his cousin Eva. Now, if this would scroll at a normal pace, I don't know. Come on, bud. Guys, I swear I'm functional.
Sorry, we're doing this like wicked live in that I'm traveling. Jonathan is traveling. Nami had a late night at work, and unfortunately Nick couldn't make it. So listen, not your fault, Nami, but also just FYI, we all have 2 sections of this summary to read. So just keep an eye out for that because I didn't have time to tell you about that.
Thank you for
We're doing it live.
Amazing. We got this.
All right, where were we now?
Well, I finally scrolled down, you see, and they did find said secret lair, but in the end, Severin rushed into things and almost died. It was only Eva's mastery of ice forging that saved him, and that's where we picked back up with our current part. So, the cookies have been waiting outside Severin's sick room for what they hope will be its recovery. Eventually, Layla's are allowed in, although Eva objects to this, until Layla and Severin play at affection so that everyone else will leave and they can talk. Yeah, just talk. Totally just talk. Oh, okay, so they really do just talk, which is wild. And then Layla stays in Severin's room because, that's the silly arrangement that they have with her as his mistress. But more importantly, they head back down to the grotto the next day and are able to determine very quickly that the security system is triggered by heat. Of course, this leads to Eva, the blood and ice forger, being imperative to their plans. But as soon as they know that the special forging she does works, Severin orders her and Ruslan away because, in case everyone didn't know, they aren't cookies, so they're not allowed.
Anyway, they still trigger something. Whoops, and I went the opposite way and went too far down. A mechanical leviathan that Zofia eventually names David rises out of the pool in the grotto. And yet that's not even the most worrisome thing about the situation, because Layla realizes that the statues in the grotto, statues of girls with ruined mouths, are likenesses of actually formerly alive, now dead girls. They are all disturbed by this, but none so much as Layla. And Delphine actually offers to remove her from the situation, while Enrique asks Hypnos to escort him to the bookless library. Sadly, Hypnos abandons him fairly quickly because ADHD or something. Enrique does figure out how to get the books to appear and has a moment with a Russian before getting distracted by the realization that the girls with the ruined mouths are the key to the treasure. So Enrique works with Sophia to crack the code, as it were, and after Hypnos and Ava arrive, they come to the conclusion that blood will unlock the obvious Tezcats in the grotto. They end up in one hell of a pickle because while 2 of the Tezcats are bricked up, 1 is open, and Enrique, Zofia, and Eva wander into fucking Istanbul, where they are attacked by forces that we can't even begin to explain and only make it out because Enrique is about to sacrifice himself But then instead of just running off, Ava stops to create an ice bridge that allows them to escape from the giant stone statues that are attacking them. Meanwhile, Layla reads the statues of the girls from the grotto and realizes they were all women who were taken and murdered in the name of sacrifice because they wouldn't be missed. Talk about fucked up.
However, between the reminder of Layla's touch and what she can do with it, and what they have all learned from the library and the Tezcats, several of the cookies come to the conclusion that if one has to have a certain lineage to read the divine lyrics, that person must be Layla, designated Team Magical Girl. Not that anyone tells her that, because lol, who shares their hypotheses? Clearly not a functional team. Insert giant sigh here. Oh, and by the way, remember David, the mechanical leviathan that is? At some point, Sophia walked into its mouth and saw that there were stairs leading down, and that comes back when they fully crack the code, which says, "The teeth of the devil call to me." And the teeth it's speaking of turn out to be the leviathans, because the symbols in its mouth read, "I am the devil." Only that wasn't the only thing that Enrique and Sophia figured out. There is also some writing on one of the portals that reads, "To play at God's instrument will summon the unmaking." This is clearly a warning, and one that they take to mean that reading the divine lyrics will undo all existing forged things. And yet, they still go into David's mouth, where they discover a literal treasure trove that unfortunately doesn't include any sort of book. While they're celebrating the discovery of the treasure, despite the lack of the book for which they're all desperately searching, they hear that the entire Winter Conclave is on its way to the Sleeping Palace. For obvious reasons, none of the cookies are happy about this, and when Enrique tries to talk to Hypnos about the situation, it leads to their final break up. Because all this time, Enrique has seen that Hypnos prefers Severin's companionship, or even lack of it, and is entirely exhausted with being ignored, which who can blame him? Unfortunately, this leads to Enrique being attacked. Unfortunately, this leads to Enrique being attacked while at about the same time, Sophia's curiosity leads to her being attacked. However, it's important to note that right before he is attacked, Enrique realizes that the divine lyrics isn't a thing that exists at all, that it's the divine lyre, an instrument, not a book. Holy shit!
I have a very important question. Has it been pronounced lyre this whole time?
It's liar, isn't it?
I've always pronounced it lyre because that's how I always read it to myself. And it's one of those, it's like GIF versus GIF. I've never been able to, I know it's supposed to be pronounced liar, but I read it lyre for so long before realizing how it was pronounced that I can't undo that.
Yeah, honestly, my word is behemoth.
Behemoth?
Yes, behemoth.
I've got a lot of words because I read a lot when I was a kid, way before the internet came around, and you could figure out how words were pronounced by just searching them.
I'm just lucky because they haven't been coming up for me. But continuing on. Sadly, Severed and Layla are ignorant of their friend's plight, and for a moment, Layla's trying to have some fun dancing. Until Ruslan mentions that he saw her with Severin when she absolutely wasn't with him, and she realizes that in an earlier confrontation, Eva cut her and therefore has her blood. And this is all sorts of fucked up because while Layla rushes to Severin's room and we're all like, ugh, Severin, ugh, about him right now, Eva is using Layla's blood to wear her face and come onto Severin, which is absolutely sexual assault. No good, very bad. Ew. Put the whole Eva in the garbage can. Just the whole Eva can go. Goodbye. Huh. All right, take a breather. That was a lot. We ain't done yet though. Thankfully, Layla kicks Eva out of the room, and while Severin is clearly under the influence, he initiates an encounter with the real Layla because, shocker, that's what he wanted all along. It's still a bit of a touchy situation considering he's not actually sober or entirely himself, and also, Layla, you could do better, and also this relationship is toxic, and also guys, speak for 2 minutes that isn't just about identity crises or whatever it is. Ugh. Plus, In the end, it works out for the people who orchestrated, that being Ruslan and Eva, because you see, they were waiting in the wings, as it were. And as soon as Layla tries to leave the room, Eva I tried to say encapsulates. I'm gonna try again. And as soon as Layla leaves the room, Eva incapacitates her because, oh yeah, they believe that Layla, like everybody else, also believes that Layla is the person who can play the aforementioned divine liar. Guys, I swear, I'm so bad at talking. I'm so sorry.
Oh, and by the way, remember that guy from earlier in the novel? I certainly didn't. Who had an affair with a ballerina and warned the cookies against some mysterious she? That she is Ava, who is his daughter. And he literally mutilated her so that she couldn't be a ballerina like her mom. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. Eventually, Severin wakes up just in time to save Enrique, though Zofia needs to save them by figuring out how to control one of the ice animals from the palace. Only for Severin and Hypnos to end up inside the Leviathan, and Delphine, while Enrique and Sophia are captured by Ruslan, and Ava, who are apparently both totally terrible, rip our positive feelings for Ruslan. Remember what we liked about him, big sigh. Delphine then tells Severin that it's actually him who has the bloodline and can play the divine liar, which, God, none of us like Severin right now, and this is kind of blah news, to be quite honest. Delphine wants to save Severin and Hypnos, but Severin goes against her wishes. This means that Delphine will die, which she does somewhat willingly, while Severin exits the Leviathan to save his friend.
Only it seems like he doesn't do that, at least to Layla. Save his friend, that is. There's a whole side plot with Red Jam that makes it look like he murders Enrique and Zofia, and then he proves to Ruslan, who, by the way, is not the patriarch of House Daysbog, but rather someone from the Fallen House, that he, Severin, is the person who can play the divine liar. I hate that word. I'm sorry. I hate it pronounced that way. Severin does have a Nemo bug with his, Severin does leave a Nemo bug with his new plan, because this is heist on heist on heist, so we got to have a new plan for Layla so she can read it. No, that's not right. So she can watch it, whatever they do in Nemo bugs, and know that Severin is still a good lad. And Ruslan and Eva abscond with Severin and the liar, and Layla is left with her supposedly dead friends and naturally destroys the Nemo bug that proved Severin didn't actually kill them, because she big mad. The Silvered Serpents concludes with a Hypnos epilogue. Yay! Though it's a giddy, heart-wrenching moment when he recalls Severin saying, "I protect you." And so, another dark ending for our cookies, be they sweet or Severin. I'm very proud of that. Thank you very much.
Terrible.
Executes bow on tiny laptop camera that I'm not used to having to be
You're
on.
doing great. So, fun clarification, he actually did leave the bug for Layla to read, like, with her touch. Because then
I see. Okay.
His emotions and know that he was doing it right. Because, like, the video still, isn't super great for him.
Okay, yeah. I was reading that. I was like, wait, do they read these things? What is going on here? Okay,
Honestly,
so
all I really want, like, granted, I know I've read the next book, so I can't say this, but all I really want is a little side story when Enrique and Sophia get up covered in jelly and they go, "Oh man, we're in a bit of a jam."
Oh God.
Oh, I love it. I love you.
Thank you. My work here is done. Good night, folks. That's our episode. That's all we got. Been a rough one.
So, first things first. Wait a minute. Layla's name isn't Layla. And I'm gonna quote this here. This is a quote from the book. "My name is not Layla," whispered Layla to the dead girls. "I gave that name to myself when I left home. I have not said my true name in years, but since I don't know if we'll ever discover who you were, I hope you find peace in this secret." One by one, she walked among them and told them her real name, the name her mother had given her. I'm literally getting chills, like, rereading that quote, but also, what the fuck? That's not, sorry. I don't know. My brother-in-law is calling me. I have no idea why. But also, what the fuck? That like Layla isn't her actual name. Like what?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny to me because this whole time, like, she is, using the name Layla, and then she calls Severin Majnun, and there's actually like a South Asian story about Layla and Majnun. So this whole time I was like, haha, literary reference with your name. That's so funny. But turns out she just wanted that literary reference for her own. Well, maybe she just really liked the book. I don't know, man. Although if I was going to pick a name, Layla would be a good one. But also, like,
Well,
Big Damn.
Well, don't we find that out later if she liked the book?
That she what? I'm sorry.
Well, the story that was.
Jonathan, that's book 3, bud.
I don't know. I haven't gotten that far, so I'm glad I'm glad I'm getting texts and calls from family
Sorry,
members.
got confused.
And wait, you've gone so far ahead apparently. Anyway, don't say anything more.
And I would like to point out the only reason I am bringing this up is because this is a thing, that just culturally I picked up while reading. So like that story is actually just, like folktale thing that South Asian people know. So yeah. Nothing to see here, folks.
Yep, ignoring whatever you guys are saying, honestly. Like I said, good thing I was in the middle of getting like random calls and texts from half my family members. This is what I get for being in South Carolina. So I'm actually on East Coast time for once, you guys.
Wild.
I know. So yeah, I guess like I'm sure that we will get her real name, or at least I hope we will. But at the same time, I was like, what? Wait, whoa. And then like, of course, then Enrique, when he's in the library, and I think this is actually in the first part of the book that we covered 2 weeks ago, he sees the book called Layla and Majnun, which of course is her, nickname, playful nickname, whatever you want to call it, for Severin. And I was like, oh, that's interesting and really apt. But now like that's not her real name either. I don't know. I'm very interested in this development, honestly. Like very interested. So we'll see.
So do we have any predictions on what her real name actually is?
Her name was Nami this whole time.
Well, I think do we think we've heard her real name, but somewhere in the book? I didn't recall it at all. But
yeah,
I'm
no,
just
I got no
if there are
idea.
any hints to her real name or if it's even important.
Honestly, I'm kind of torn on it because I really I was like intrigued by it, but also like wow, sorry guys. Holy shit.
You just lost it there.
I did. I'm intrigued by it, but also I don't know. I really don't know if we're gonna get answers because like something that I came to like grasp and start to be okay with in this book specifically was the fact that a lot of the magic system in this world is less of a system and more of a hand wavy, it's magic, I'll do what I want. And so because of the lack of explanations there, I'm honestly like not really expecting explanations for anything, but also if I get them, I'll be happy. Those vibes. Also, don't mind me. I still have hella COVID brain fog. I can't even function. We're doing it.
I have travel brain frog. I have travel brain frog. Ribbit.
Brain frog.
Ribbit.
I can't say brain fog. It's just the brain. The R moves into the
brain.
I have travel brain fog. Brain frog. His name is George. George the brain frog.
Oh, I love George. What a sweet
lad. I don't. Okay, so speaking of Layla, though, the constant Severin stuff got really frustrating. Not that it already wasn't, of course, but when Enrique insisted that she tell Severin about the fact that she was going to die soon, because she told them that, and he was like, well, no, if Severin knows, that might change the way he's been acting. Her response was amazing. And again, I'm going to read a passage from the book because I really, really loved this. And what if it doesn't change him, she said, her voice rising. And even if it does, what does that mean that I have to be at death's door to bring him back to himself? My life and whatever is left of it will not be what his soul gnaws on to regain its strength. My death is not in service to his character, and I will not be a sacrifice simply for him to find peace of mind. He is not my responsibility to save.
Amazing.
It's a great anti-fridging quote, first of all.
It's a great anti-fridging quote. It's a great, just like, I also got frustrated with Layla's pining, especially because for me, this book was just an exercise in Severin being a dick to her through his misguided idea of blaming himself for saving her instead of saving Tristan, and all of his misguided bullshit about that. And granted, it was interesting to see Severin as a character make such shitty decisions for himself. But on Layla's end, I was like, this man is treating you like crap. And I acknowledge feelings don't just go away, especially if you have deep feelings for a person. But at some point, I just this was me almost getting to a Nina Matthias level where I just wanted to shake her and be like, he's not good for you. Stop it. And then she says this, and I'm like, okay, you know what? For all of her pining, she still has a lot of self-respect, and a lot more self-respect than you get from a lot of women characters in fantasy and women characters in romance situations in general. Because literally any other story she would have told him, and he would have had a crisis about it, and then he would have been like, yes, I love you, Layla. And then I don't know, maybe they would have fixed it, maybe they wouldn't, but then it would be like, Layla, I love you, la, because I'm bad at English right now. But we know that story, we read that story, and I fucking hate that story. Alternatively, she would have tragically died in his arms, and after telling him this futile journey for his salvation in the form of her. I don't know. I hate it. I'm so happy. I love this quote. I want this quote tattooed on my chest. It's I look down and attempt to read it upside down when I have to remind myself that I should not be putting my value into romantic partners and trying to change them to make them like me more, but then it would be tattooed upside down, so I wouldn't be able to read it, or it wouldn't be good. Don't let me get this tattoo, guys.
I mean, so yeah, I guess, Jonathan, did you have any thoughts about it? Because part of me is I love the idea of course, communication between all of them is super important, right? But in this instance, I found myself on Layla's side because, again, like she said, he's been being a huge ass, and why should,
well, I mean, the reason she should tell him is if the goal is to find the magical item so that she will not die, then that would theoretically help achieve that goal, which to me would be more paramount than the toxic relationship they have.
You would think.
Frankly, though, it already is the most paramount. That is what they've been pretty much single-mindedly going towards.
They are, but he has no idea that there's a time constraint here. So, there's a plan, and then there's a plan you do if you have to do something quickly, and it may be different things, and you may behave differently as a result. Now, whether that's good or bad, who knows? But it seems to me that I would have given him the information if I were in her shoes. But
I understand why it seems like it would be important for her to give him the information, but at the same time, I completely get her reasoning. And I also think that part of the problem was that Enrique kind of I don't know. I think he kind of botched it a little bit in the way he said this is why you should tell him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it'll change the way he acts. And of course Layla gets mad that no, I don't want that. I don't want it to be, him to change the way he acts because of this. Right. So I think it's a little bit like I understand why she should have shared that information, but I also think that Enrique maybe botched it by
I think
giving
Enrique
the wrong
did,
reasoning.
I think Enrique did his lovely Enrique thing where he opened his mouth and put his entire foot inside. And I love Enrique to pieces. He is still my he is like, if Layla didn't hit every single like Indian nostalgia thing for me as well, Enrique would have been my favorite character, hands down. He would have been my absolute favorite. And so, like, poor lad doing his best. You're absolutely right. He says it to her wrong, and like this sort of pushes her into the all of this. So like, while I get what you mean, Jonathan, I think the other thing to keep in mind is that Layla's been keeping this secret for like 2 years. Like, there's kind of a point where like if you've held on to a life-changing secret long enough, it's like even worse to tell it, which is sort of where I also think Layla is at this point. And I think she's just not having a good time. Guys, I swear, I'm usually so much more gooder at words.
It's an off night for all of us. I was always like, oh, should we like reschedule this for a time when I'm not in South Carolina? And then I was like, no, it's fine. Nobody will bother me. But no, then I'm getting like text messages constantly. So it's fine. Everything's fine here. Anyway, and also the editing of this podcast is probably not going to happen until it's going to be very late. It's going to be very late in the game.
Everything is fine. All fine. Nothing to see here, folks.
But yes, like you said, Nami, it's perfect that she's refusing to be a prop for Severin. We love to see it.
I like had this moment where I was like, if Enrique had just come up and been like, this would all go faster if you told everyone you were dying, right? She would have been like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. Like, we would speed it up. But the fact that he was like, Severin might be nicer to you if you tell him you're dying, right? Was like, what the fuck, dude? It was in that moment where it was in that moment where Enrique was just such a boy about things, and I'm just like, you do not know how to speak with people, do you, honey? Hypnos would not have said that. Hypnos would have done, giving Hypnos a lot of credit. I don't know that Hypnos would have known better. Hypnos would have probably just flirted with Layla and called it a day, honestly.
No, Hypnos would have been. He's also not good at communication.
Exactly. I'm like, nobody's good at communicating amongst our cookies. I think the cookies just need like a mom. Oh wait, they had one. She's drowned in a snake.
Well, sort of. They had her, I guess. I don't know.
I don't even know. She wasn't even supportive long enough to be a real mother figure. Yeah. They just have
You're not my real mom.
They just have a dead brother and a dead shitty mom, and
neither one of my stepkids has ever said that to me in like seriousness, but it's like it is a joke.
Like
it is a joke that has been, proffered, and I find it funny when it happens, right?
Yeah.
Like, but most of the younger one, I don't think the older one, Ben, has ever said it, but the younger one, who's like 15, kiddo, has absolutely been like, well, you're not my real mom. And it's always like we're lolling about it because it is funny when he says it. But that's in this case, it's Angie, right? Like, you ain't my real mom. Get out of here with your buttered and jammed up toast.
You're not my real mom. And also you hid my real mom's identity from me. And also you're a pretty shitty aunt. And you protected me in the shittiest way possible. Just go die in a snake. That's what I meant.
I do feel, we'll get into that in a minute. One question this is kind of a totally random aside, but why hasn't Zofia heard from her sister?
Oh my God, right? I'm like literally vibrating. I'm like,
But wasn't she dying? Maybe she's died.
Well,
Jonathan, do not put that on the table.
I mean, I think that's kind of the conclusion we're meant to come to.
Right? I hate it.
But at the same time, I don't want to come to that conclusion. Like,
I mean, we already lost one sibling figure. Like, we don't need to lose the off-screen sibling figure that we're not even attached to. Like, I don't have the emotional.
Yeah, but that's the perfect sibling news.
But then
You're not attached.
Tristan, and I don't think we're getting back Tristan.
I don't know. I feel like there's something else going on there. I'm hoping that she didn't just die. That seems really, I don't know. That seems like a really weak, like, side story, right?
Yeah, I really desperately, like, I want to know what's happening with her, but I also don't want it to suck. But then I also don't want to know what's happening to her because I'm like 70% sure that it sucks.
Yeah.
But I'm also at least 80% sure she doesn't die. Because like you said, it's too predictable. It makes too much sense. Like maybe the Fallen House kidnapped her or something.
That's kind of where I've been leaning, is because we know that Severin sent like a special doctor, and then she wrote to Sophia at some point, and I think it was like describing a different situation, like not Severin's doctor, but like there was somebody else there to help her, and he was this young, attractive guy, like. And I kind of wonder if the reason why Sophia hasn't heard from her is because somebody has it could, maybe they haven't even kidnapped her. Maybe it's just that they're hiding her letters, and also I originally I was like, okay, wait, is Severin hiding her letters? Because after what he did to Enrique, which we'll get into in a minute, like that sounds like something he would do. But then Sophia asked him about it and he was like, wait, what? You haven't heard from her? And he was like concerned about it too. So I'm pretty sure, like 95% sure that he's not involved. I don't think he would play at knowing, this is her sister, right? Tristan was his brother. I don't think Severin would fuck with that. Like, I don't think he would lie.
I mean, honestly, like, here's my whole thing with Severin right now. Like, at this point in the story, I don't know what he would and wouldn't do. And that's the part that really does frustrate me. Because, like, I'm on the same boat. Like, I really don't think he would fuck with her like that because siblings, because he understands, with Tristan, how important it is. But also he's in such a fucked up headspace about Tristan that it's wholly possible that he's just like completely separating them and not equating them and doing it as I have to protect her to keep her sibling out of it, because if her sibling gets hurt because of our involvement, she'll be like me and Tristan and she'll hate me. And like, I know that's an over analysis, but also Severin's an over analyzing idiot. So like I could see it from him.
But there's also, hold on, let me just say this real quick. There's also the side thing where, okay, let's ignore the whole he wouldn't do this because siblings, whatever. He knows that Sophia is going to be distracted if she doesn't hear from her sister. So why would he be purposefully keeping communication from her sister from her?
Oh yeah, no, I feel that too, which is why I'm like I don't know, I'm conflicted about it, because it's also like the same thoughts I have with the Enrique thing, like Enrique's obviously like distracted and upset about like canceling his thingy, but Severin still did that. So like again, I'm very torn on like what Severin's line currently is, because it's like what does he consider to be too distracted, because like I consider Enrique at this point too distracted to function correctly, and like that's where I'm so stuck, because Severin is so erratic and terrible in this book that I'm just like I just want to go up to the lad and shake him and be like, suck less. Would you like a spider to hold?
I don't know. I really think that even if it's not the good reason of like he just wouldn't want to do that to his friend who, like, after he just lost his sibling, he wouldn't want to put her, through the just not knowing if her sibling was okay. I just, oh gosh, I don't like Severin at all. But if he is actually lying or keeping communication from her sister away from Sophia, I'm done. Like, I'm done. There is no coming back from that, Severin. I'm sorry. I don't care.
Like, in this book, I am kind of already done with Severin. Like,
that too.
I'm like frankly, like, he's crossed the line for me already, like, he, first off, like, obviously Enrique's talk. Secondly, not addressing his grief about Tristan. Thirdly, blaming Layla for Tristan's death indirectly. Like, all of this already is just like such a shitty thing to do. And if somebody even pulled like a fraction of this to one of my friends, I would be like, no, get out. Like, you're fucking done, bud. Like, stop it. That ain't cool. And he's already done all of this. So frankly, like, Severin's on my shit list. Character development wise, I'm like, if I enjoy the literary activity of watching a character continuously fuck up. So it has been entertaining to see him do this, but at the same time, like, hate him as a person right now. The worst. I remember last book, everybody was like, yeah, I hope we'll like Severin more. And I'm like, sucks.
Sucks to be hopeful.
Have no hope. Hope is dead. Like Tristan. I feel like one
rude.
Of those
Rude, Nami.
Well, I feel like, have you ever seen like in fandoms where there are AO3 fan fictions where it's like very common knowledge that a character dies? They'll like tag it like this fic is as dead as Dumbledore. And like shit like that. Like, and it's like it'll be like, this fic is full of suffering, like, we suffered over Dumbledore's death, like shit like that. So that's all I can think of right now, and I'm really sorry because that is all I'm going to do. And Delphine's also dead, which means that like I'm going to make jokes about her being dead too, because this is
no jokes of death.
What?
I don't know. I mean, Jonathan, what do you think? Do you think Severin is keeping the information from her? Or do you think he legitimately wouldn't do that because, I mean, whether it's because he wouldn't do that because he just lost his own sibling, or whether, I mean, I think it's more believable that at this point that he wouldn't do that because he just doesn't want her.
Yeah, I don't think he knows.
Yeah. I want to know who this cute guy is that showed up to like woo her sister.
Oh my god, guys, maybe we've been thinking about this all wrong. Maybe her sister's having a torrid affair and has been too sexed up to write letters.
It is YA after all. Or like sort of YA. I don't know. This is probably the most like sexed up YA I've ever read.
Apparently, like YA these days has sex, and I'm like, huh?
I mean, I think it's evolving with the times. Honestly, like when Hunger Games, for instance, was written in, what was it, 2010 or something?
I don't know what time was.
I
think earlier than that. I think Hunger Games was written earlier than that.
Yeah, you might be right. I know the first movie came out in like 2012 or 2013, right? But shoot, the first movie went in 2011. I don't know, whatever. Like the only YA I've read that was like sexed up was Mortal Instruments, which I hated so much.
2008 for the Hunger Games.
The first one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the only like kind of very sex centric YA I read before I get, honestly, really even this one, like there's been physical encounters, right? Like, and I'm not saying I'm against this, or against like the evolution of YA as children, teenagers, I guess, evolve. Because when I was in middle school, like there was like a rumor that one girl in my class in 8th grade had sex, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, did you hear this girl had sex? Oh my God, what a slut!" Like, oh my God. And I'm me personally, I was like, what the fuck? Somebody had sex. Like, I'm not even judging her. I'm just like, how did you do that? How did this happen for you?
You knew where things went? Wow.
Well, not even that. Just like,
I know.
How are you like, evolved enough to do this thing?
I absolutely agree. By the way, like I remember like because I read these books like I want to say like over a year ago before the third book came out. I'd read the first two, and I remember reading this and being like, wow, there's a lot more sex in YA than I originally realized, because like even before this, like the most sex I remember being in YA was like Twilight, and even then it was very much a highly implied thing. And in this one, it is like explicitly like fade to black, which obviously isn't explicit, but like you know what I mean. It's clearly fade to black versus just heavily implied. And then she shows up with a baby, Twilight, what the fuck?
I thought Twilight was all about 50 Shades of Grey, so.
Oh no. Twilight was like
he's
fully marketed towards middle school and high school girls.
Which is
I was joking.
Oh, thank God.
Yes, he was absolutely joking. Also, no,
you also froze at that exact moment, so I got like your words, but like not your facial expressions. So the end result was like I just could not clock what was happening, and I'm just like,
oh gosh.
Fear, Jonathan legitimately believes this. But yeah, no, I was like, okay. And the other thing I've noticed though, and this also comes to, I've learned this from people who are in like publishing YA specifically more. And so YA has come to evolve to mean, like upper teens. So like 16, 17, 18, and like been targeted more to them and also to like young female adults, like in like college and just out of college. And so that's why the YA stories we're seeing have been evolving more, especially because middle grade books have also, because they are mostly serially formatted, they've been evolved in starting, from kids around 12 and ending up with kids around 15, 16, 17. So like, it's the reason that all of your like your Harry Potters and your Percy Jacksons, they start with a 12-year-old, but they end up with an 18-year-old, so it still stays within that. So middle grade has evolved sort of to like start as middle grade, but grow with the readers. And I think that a lot of what YA has done as well is grow with the readers. And in the process, it left the actual like intended audience of YA a bit hanging, but people are still writing those stories. That now you also have like this weird section of YA that's like, yes, no, we do mean legal adults. Yes, no, like full adults. No, not children. No, full adult. No, but YA. But like, everyone's confused. Have a beer, but like also don't, because I don't think you legally can. Thank you guys. It's so funny when I have no brain cells.
Okay, so moving on from why hasn't Sophia heard from her sister, and maybe her sister is just having lots of sexy time with the cute whoever it was that showed up to take care of her. Which honestly, if that's the case, good for her. But
I vote nurse, personally,
which would be better than being dead.
Yes.
Well, yes, literally anything would be better than being dead.
We will
I think it's like
dead.
I think it's like Sophia's sister met a dude and he's really nice and is helping take care of her and is now too busy being in love with him and possibly having sexy time to contact her sister. And then like just below that is that she is like whoever that dude was is part of the Fallen House and is hiding her letters and not allowing them to be sent. And below that is Severin is actually even worse than I want to think he is and is hiding her sister's letters.
And Dead is down here on my screen. Dead is
yeah, and then dead, and then dead. It doesn't exist in the thing we want to happen.
We will take manipulative Severin over dead. I mean, let's be fair.
Yes.
Manipulative Severin is like over here, but like dead's still down here.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of manipulative Severin, is there? I still don't understand the reasoning behind him canceling Enrique's talk at that Parisian library. I mean, the Enrique having that talk and nobody showing up, that happened obviously in the first like 2 parts of the book, so fine, whatever. But we didn't find out why nobody showed up until in this part of the book. And why did he do that? Like I don't like it. I don't like it.
I couldn't remember. Was there something else important that they had planned around it? Was it like the day before the Russia trip or something? Like, because like honestly, like that was
no. I think that so my take on it was that Severin, yes, he wanted all the cookies present for his meeting because he found out, that more information on the Divine Lyrics, the Fallen House's secret stash, whatever. But he went out of his way. I think he went out of his way early enough to pay off people to not go to this thing that it wouldn't have harmed when their meeting was. You know what I'm saying? Like Enrique could have given his talk and still showed up at the meeting. And that's what's bugging me about it. Like I can't, and part of this could just be that I kind of spaced out my reading of this book. And then of course I also, finished it like nearly 2 weeks ago, but actually, no, that's not even true. Even after I finished it, I couldn't really figure out the reasoning behind why Severin would do that. Like, I think that, Enrique's mad about it, right? So he's over there thinking like, well, he did it to, I don't know, stimmy my involvement with this group or whatever. But I don't know. So neither one of you remember if or know whether or not there would have been another reason? Because I can't.
Yeah, no, I don't remember another reason. And I'm curious if any listeners can think of one or remember one. Because like I also remember being like incredibly frustrated by this because it was one of those things that I was like, I kind of, the way that I am seeing it is like when a person is out of control, like Severin is, and they are making poor choices based off of like fear and irrationality. I basically saw it as the way we all have like those dumb irrational thoughts that are like, I could just kick over this trash can. I could just do this. I could just do that. I just saw it as him acting on one of those and like just like full up, like just like going further unhinged. So honestly, to me, like, I don't know that I ever thought we get a concrete reason from Severin. And I also thought that was part of the problem of it, like on a deeper level, is that like Severin was very much acting based off of only fears, and even he doesn't have a deeper reason for doing it. He was just so afraid of being abandoned that like he does this in a desperate measure that he can't even quantify. And I think that's the conclusion that I reached based off of Enrique's hypotheses about what Severin could have possibly been thinking. Because Enrique's whole thing is like, oh, is this a manipulation to make me stay? And in my mind, I was like, oh my God, yeah, no, that's probably it. Like Severin's just so completely off his handle that he's got no fucking idea what he's doing anymore. And he's just making bad decisions left and right and left and right. And that's, yeah, I don't recall ever getting a confirmation from Severin's POV about what it was. But frankly, like the way he's been an unhinged asshole this book, I'm like, yeah, okay, that tracks. I hate it, but it tracks.
I don't know. Yeah, Jonathan, I mean, do you remember a reason for this?
Not at all.
Because I actually tried Googling it, and it was mostly just people being like, why the fuck did Severin do this? Not like here's the reasoning why he did this. So I feel like nobody really knows what the. I feel like no one really knows.
I feel like this whole book was an exercise in watching this acquaintance that you've kind of like gotten to know well enough that you care about their well-being and think they're an okay dude, and you just watch them make increasingly unhinged, terrible life decisions, and you're just like, what the fuck, man? You're not a cool dude. The Severin saga.
You're not a cool dude, Severin. Sorry, not sorry.
Just
Oh gosh. So
I don't care how tall, dark, and handsome you are, bud.
nobody can see you. Just kick the vodka.
Oh no, what's happening?
My friend who lives in my house I took the vodka and he texted me. He was like, "Where's the vodka?" I was like, "In here with me."
No.
He was like, "I don't want to come get it. I don't want to be on camera." I was like, "Just
Tell me to come back. Stick his face in. Who is he? Is he even real? Is he a vodka ghost?
He's a vodka.
I don't think I've ever met Steve. Tell him to come back.
I'll tell him to come back when we're not live. How about that? I'll force him to come back and meet people. Okay, so anyway, so yeah, I guess we don't know why Severin did this, and I'm gonna be mad about this until we get an explanation, and there better be a fucking explanation because it's fucked up. That said,
explanation is because he sucks.
That said, in terms of disappointment, fucked up, blah blah blah, because one after the other, Zofia not hearing from her sister, Severin finding out Severin canceled Enrique's talk. Oh, Ruslan and Eva are bad, and like Ruslan is like really bad.
No, we just haven't got their POVs yet. It will be okay once we get their POVs.
Yes, I'm sure it will not. That would be like in that'd be like us getting the Darklings POV. Oh wait, we did a little bit in the show. That would be like us getting like Ramsey's POV. No, that's not true. That's way worse. Okay.
Cool
No,
I still murder.
Yeah, and Song of Ice and Fire, Ramsey's POV. No. So I did see, of course, we saw that moment where Eva was like, "Whoa, wait, what the fuck is going on?" Right at the end. So as it turns out, Eva's probably going to be the one that changes her mind. But I just really liked Ruslan. Like I liked his just kind of
like, I think Eva rubbed me really the wrong way because I'm always here for like girls having a fake rivalry and then becoming friends, but Eva just continued to be the worst. And then she like raped Severin, and even though I hate Severin right now, I hate Eva more. And I'm just kind of like, I'm so mad at her. Like, why does she have to suck so hard? And like, so I was so busy in this book being like exceedingly mad at Eva for just sucking that like Ruslan being there, she's like, oh yeah, it's this guy, like good vibes dude, like Enrique's new study buddy, let's fucking go, like good for him. And honestly at this point, like I'm not even mad for like everybody, I'm like mad for Enrique because like he lost a new bro, like he lost his emotional support bro in all of this bullshit happening.
He lost the one person who listened to him, but obviously the reasons Ruslan was listening to him were the wrong reasons.
Yeah, and like so like I maintain that like I was always pretty like meh about Ruslan, and like the thing that like made it heartbreaking and upsetting for me, like if he had just turned out to be evil, I would have been like, oh shit, that sucks. But then like the fact that he was evil and he was Enrique's only support system at this point, I was just like, oh no, Enrique's just been betrayed so much.
My problem with it, my thing with it was so Ruslan was constantly going on about like being bald and like, you know, like loving people's like hair and stuff. And it just, not that my dad was ever weird like that in terms of like, oh, you have great hair or whatever. My dad went bald like really young. So I was like, oh, he kind of reminds me of my dad. And I say this, not having the greatest relationship with my father, but that's for, you know, that's for non-consequential reasons for this podcast, but like it reminded me a little bit of that like this guy just went bald really young and he's like so cute about other people's hair. And then when Sophia was like, they asked Sophia what she thought of him, she was like, he's soft, because she touched his head and it was soft. And I was like, well, Sophia thinks he's soft and like he's got to be good, right? No, he's bad. He's real bad. He's real bad. It's bad. He's bad.
David, now I do feel sad. I forgot about Sophia calling him.
Right? And he's got his like weird, like rotting gray hand. Like this dude is like real bad, like bad magic stuff all the time with him. You know,
he touched the Dumbledore level bad magic that's rotting his hands off right now. He touched the Horcrux. Like he ain't fucking around. He's a real bad dude.
Lost his hair, rotting hand. Like,
do you ever do so much magic badly that all your hair falls out and your hand rots off? Because this boy sure has. And unfortunately,
I wish I knew where the magic went and what it accomplished. But
I don't know that you want it, Jonathan.
Well, I'm bald, so I must have been doing magic, but I'm just.
I don't think you have enough hair to sustain this type of magic.
You should have done it younger, and then you'd be totally bald but also have magic.
Perhaps you and my dad combined can make it work with your remaining hair.
Oh gosh, I don't know. Like I feel like I knew. Well, and I think I said that in the last, like 2 weeks ago when we talked about the parts 1 and 2 of Silvered Serpents. It's like, part of me kind of knew it was probably too good to be true, but I really, because Ruslan was so attentive to Enrique, which was a thing that Enrique really needed, and and Sophia said his head was soft, or said he was soft. Like, and I know that she just meant by touch, but at the same time, Sophia, anything you think is perfect. And I love you.
Sophia is the most correct, and I love her so much.
But yeah, it was a real, oof moment. Like Eva being bad, okay. Like when she, when you realize that she used blood forging on Severin and like and took Layla's blood and was like wearing her face and stuff, it's like, oh yeah, of course that happened, because
I think I always like quietly suspected that something was up with Eva. If I don't know that I specifically also suspected Ruslan, but like I have one of those like things that like in fantasy things, when they say that somebody's powers are associated with blood, it's usually big bad thing. So like the moment that they brought up that like she was a blood forger, I was like, this seems sus. Like typical fantasy trope now says you're evil, but I'm not gonna believe that. And then she was evil, and I'm like, knew I was right to hate you. My hating you radar was correct. And I think
I just am so anti like girl on girl like
same
nastiness that it's like
I'm anti it until one of the girls is a rapist, and then I'm for it.
Yeah.
That's my exact stance on Eva.
Oh yeah, there's always like a until you're, I don't know, like let's say like until you're like a lying piece of shit who like tries to, I don't know, like there's absolutely reasons for,
me here. I'm a love Zoya with all my heart. I am, as the kids call it, a Zoya stan. So I am here for real heckin' nasty mean girls, But I don't know, something about Eva always like very rubbed me the wrong way, especially with how like aggressively kind Layla tried to be with her to her. And I think that always just made me extra because the other thing is that like they make Eva's whole motivations be very like jealousy driven. Layla, I want what you want. And I was very much like, nah, bitch, you don't. Her boyfriend's a dick. She's dying in 10 days. Like, y'all should sit down and talk about how your lives suck, because you're gonna agree.
Well, I think the thing that really got me was both like Ruslan with his arm in a sling and Eva with her limp. I was like, well, what did they do? Like, or not even what did they do? Like, what happened to them to get them both injured in such obvious ways. And then it turns out that Ruslan's is just because he's a bad fucking dude, and Eva's is because her father was a
Terrible human being.
yeah.
A bad fucking dude. So many bad fucking dudes. I do, and like, here's the worst part. We also come down to the part of like, I think Eva is going to be a very good character, because I think you're correct in that like her whole like reaction at the end really makes me believe that like the next move is going to be her losing faith in Ruslan, and like I really think that like some sort of like her having doubt storyline is going to happen, and I think that's compelling storytelling, but I also just like really don't like her. And that's it. That's my thesis statement. That's the brain cell. It's gone.
It's fine. I mean, really, like, I guess in the end, it should have been obvious that Ruslan was bad, and that the thing with, I mean,
I also
I don't know. I guess, like, I don't.
It was only obvious.
Go ahead.
So it was only obvious because there were not enough characters in this story.
Fair.
I mean, had they had more characters in the story.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I mean, the only other potential big bad is Delphine. So.
Yeah. I think that, I don't know. It's like, I don't want to compare Eva to Zoya because I don't think Zoya ever did anything like trick a dude into getting with her by wearing somebody else's face. Like, not even anything close to that. Like, as much as
not even within her skill set. That is
yes. As much of a bitch as Zoya could be, she was never like that. But
Arya used that trick, however.
Yeah, well, in the show.
To kill Maren Trent.
Yeah, in the show. We don't talk about the show here, Jonathan. We don't talk about Game of Thrones, the show.
We don't talk about the show. Whoa.
Okay, so on that note, Jonathan, you mentioned Delphine. So let's move on to Delphine, I guess. Like, right when Severin maybe could have figured out that she wasn't totally and completely awful, and he kind of had a family member, quote unquote, back, it's, she dies. She sacrifices herself or whatever. I still don't really understand what that was all about, but like, I really just guess that Severin is not allowed to have family members from his past, just cookies.
But I mean, her excuse of protecting him by basically abandoning him to protect him pretty much has messed him up for life. So that was so great.
Nothing about it was great. It's all like just a shit lack of communication. And like, I understand that she was like not wanting him to be the head of the house, because then, no, actually, I don't. How would him being the head of the house reveal that he was that bloodline? It doesn't make any sense. Like,
well, I think to her, I think the logic that I got from it was not that it would be directly connected, but it was like giving him a position of power in the order would constantly surround him with the order and high-profile people, and could eventually put him into contact with artifacts or things that could lead to that discovery. So I think it was a very like roundabout way. And again, this is one of those like, I hate everything she did. But like in some sort of like really terrible, shitty, twisted way, I get her logic. It was shit logic, but I get it. She basically.
But why not just tell him the truth when he's older and?
See, Jonathan, we called that being a well-adjusted adult who knows how to raise a child. That is not what Delphine is. My citation for this, by the way, is your daughter. Yeah, no. I think the like funniest and most frustrating thing about Delphine, and like funny in a sad way, is that like you can see everything she does and like understand like her logic and her reasoning about it, but like at every single turn where she makes a choice, she basically makes the worst of two decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just kind of like there was the obviously terrible choice and she didn't make that one, but then there was like the slightly better and still pretty bad choices, and she continuously picked the still pretty bad choices, and I'm like, statistically speaking, how could you be this bad at decision making? You know, like, are you a Libra? Like, I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, I mean,
All
your
Libras.
Nami, your comment that you had left on our summary was that her death was framed, and these are your words. Do you want to read them?
Oh my gosh, I have to scroll up. Oh yeah.
No. I put it in the notes. I put it in the notes. You're good.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So it was very much framed as a sacrifice for the future / sacrifice for my nephew as my ultimate apology for doing wrong by him sort of deal. As in, I very much read this portion as she absolutely didn't have to die. Like if they really wanted to, there was a way for her to think her way out of this and get out of it. Cause like, she's clearly not an idiot. But I also think that this was very much one of those moments where she like saw like the accumulation of all of her shitty life decisions and like how she could have made this slightly less terrible for Severin and still been supportive while also protecting him. And I think she saw all of this in this moment. I was like, you know what? I'm taking myself out. This is me doing my absolute best to actually protect him, telling him the truth, and then removing myself from the equation so he does not have to feel guilty about trying to reconcile with me. And I think that was what I saw from her at that moment. And obviously that is very much like overanalyzing, reading into a character. But, you know, I'm usually not a fan of like sacrifice moves by characters. But in this case, I actually really did like it because like to me, it felt like her sort of, the reason I've been jokingly being like, haha, shitty mom's dead this entire episode is because I think with this sacrifice, she basically reframed herself as a maternal figure for Severin because she basically took on the responsibilities of every single wrong thing that she did to this child and was like, I'm going to save you and you do not have to like me for it. And you never have to contend with this to my face. You can just be okay and move on. And I think that's what she was doing in a very, very big way. Still think she should have lived. Like, fuck you.
I still think that it kind of seemed like a really, like, there could have been a way out of that.
Oh, no, there absolutely was a way. It's also one of those things that, like, this is another reason I dislike sacrifice moves in general in storytelling or in stories in general, because also, like, it is a weakness in a character to make, you know, the ultimate sacrifice. It's not the ultimate sacrifice. The ultimate sacrifice is sticking around and fixing your mistakes, you know? Like, and I think in a way, this was also sort of like the ultimate pinnacle of Delphine's character, because in a way she was not strong enough to stick around. And I think that's why she died. And
I just love that. I love that the ultimate sacrifice is sticking around and fixing your mistakes. I love that. I'm literally tweeting it on Sagas Sass right now.
Sometimes I say really smart things.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. And then other times I stare up into the 30 seconds. Can we believe that was the same episode? Wow, what a wild ride, kids. Me, youngest person in the group, calling everyone kids. This is on brand. But yeah, that's my whole thing. I think narratively, it's a really good move because I feel like we get so little of Delphine, but we also get so much of her and like who she is as a person and like her reasoning and like her failings all at once without really like getting to spend all that much time with her comparatively to everybody in this series. And I feel like it's funny because like there are people called Severin in this series that I still look at and I'm like, the fuck is up with you, bud? And meanwhile, Delphine, I'm like, yeah, no, I got you down. Know what your deal is. Damn, it's a shitty deal, but I know what it is.
So I did want to just leave this or say this one thing because it bugged the shit out of me in the first book and it bugged me even more in this book. is that toward the end of the book, I believe this is Layla in a Layla chapter. I'm like 99.9% sure. The quote is, "She could not see her hope for what it was, nothing more than a silvered serpent." Like,
Yep, I also was team, that's forced.
yeah, title reference. Like, I suppose I get that the Leviathan is it being a mechanical serpent.
I would have
is considered that.
been okay with it if it had just been like an indirect reference to the Leviathan. Like, that would have been great. Like the first book, if they had made it like sort of like a recurring thing that whenever the Order got together, they wore wolves' masks and were gilded with finery, and they could have used the word gilded to describe like the walls somewhere else. But like the fact that like that actual phrase was said, I was like kind of like, it felt a bit forced to me. I'm also team
a bit.
I'm also very much team, like, if I don't see dragons dance and trance with dragons, I'm gonna be upset. But also like you know, like some things are a bit too on the nose, and that was to me, that was like the equivalent of like a fifth grader standing up in class and holding up a sign that says, "This is a metaphor."
Yeah.
And then saying a metaphor, and I'm like, bit heavy-handed.
Yeah, it was a lot. Like the first book, it was like, okay, this isn't great, right?
First book, I was able to get past it. This book was the one where I wanted to take Roshani and shake her a little bit, and also shake her editors and be like, "Who let her do this?
There could have been so many ways you could have just said this as a reference to the actual Silvered Serpent.
You could have literally actually called the Leviathan serpent a couple times. Somebody's POV could have been, yes, the silvery scales. Like, you know, there were ways. And I just want to shake her editors and be like, was this the hill that she wanted to die on? Is this what you let her do? You're supposed to be the responsible adult. Oh, yeah, now I just realized in my Bronze Beast reread, I'm just going to be like, damn it, where do they say it? Where do they say it? I hate it! But the fact that I can't explicitly remember it means that maybe it's not that bad. Fingers crossed. That's all I can hope for.
Well, on that note, do we have any last thoughts on the Silvered Serpents? Because I think I've gotten all my shit out of the way.
My only other thing was like, this was like the book where I like resigned myself to the fact that this is a vague magic system and you're going to be okay with it.
Yeah, I got nothing else. Jonathan, what about you? Any other thoughts on?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. This is my least favorite series that we've done. So I'm
even
looking forward to it. I do feel it's Temeraire. I still liked, at least initially, and it just outlived its lifespan by probably 6 novels. But I did enjoy the first few, and I enjoyed the concept better than I'm liking this one.
Okay, well, on that note, I'm going to close this out with a quote, because that's a thing that we're doing now. And that quote is, "When a man cannot see a person as a person, then the devil has slipped into him and is peering out of his eyes." Yeah, it's a deep one.
Ooh.
Now,
that's where I'll give credit to this book, where I don't give Temeraire. Temeraire just
it's not quotable. On. It's not quotable at all.
No,
you're right. Temeraire is not quotable.
No, it's not great.
There are things with prose that Roshani Chokshi does very good, and it makes me very happy. And then other times she's like, I must put Silvered Serpents on the page, and I'm like, sweetie, no. But then
I must admit, she's named the muses at least 3 or 4 times in these 2 books. Every single one of them.
I was
Yeah,
going to
well-
say, your daughter, you named her after Talia the Muse, right?
So sort of. There's
We
an
talked about
interesting-
this. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, but yes.
Nami wasn't here. So
Yeah.
basically, my first choice for a name was Athena. But
Yes.
Anna said that if she's ugly, she'd never be able to live it down having a name of a goddess. So we can't name her Athena. And
I mean, honestly,
then
good call. She was not wrong.
and then we were on our way to the hospital, and I don't remember exactly why Anna picked Talia, other than there was a Mexican singer by that name that era that we liked some of the music, and Anna's like, I sort of like the name Talia, so we did. So then the irony is, as soon as we get home and tell my father that Talia was born and that her name is Talia, and he immediately says, oh, the muse of comedy. So my father knew exactly who Talia was.
Love it.
And at the time I had no idea. So the irony is we didn't name her after a goddess, and name her after a Greek goddess.
That
And also
That's
apparently
awesome.
pronounce it wrong, right?
And we pronounce it wrong, apparently.
Because
Oh, yeah,
according to
At
the
least
Talia?
at least according to the audiobook. Where
I wanna
they
say
pronounce it Talia is how they are
What the-
pronouncing it.
I'm sorry. I would have accepted Thalia, but also I guess
Yeah, I've
that's
heard Thalia. Yeah, they're pronouncing it Talia is how they're pronouncing it in the audiobook.
Do you think it's like
I
do you think it's a Roy Dotrice situation where Catelyn was pronounced Caitlin and Brienne was pronounced Brienne?
See, I think this might be I overcorrected brown in my pronunciation, and this audiobook clearly overcorrected white. Talia, the fuck kind of white nonsense is this?
All right. Well, on that note, I think we're done for the evening. But as we close out the episode, just want to give a shout out to our heroes, to our patron, Tommy of the TKOK Podcast Network, most especially the New Dad podcast, which is really fun and hilarious. And just want to say thanks so much, Tommy, for supporting us. Once again, I'm Tara, along with Jonathan and Nami. Thank you for joining us for Sagas and Sass, and we will see you next time, which will be 2 weeks from now, when we will be talking about the first half or so of the Bronzed Beasts, which hopefully will, not have its title blatantly spoken for no reason at all.
Fear not. We saved that for the second half of the book.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay. Have a good night, y'all. Bye.
Bye.